Are you looking for an absolutely delicious, cheesy, minty shepherd's pie recipe? Well, keep watching and I'll show you how to make this without ever needing to touch a sharp knife. Hello, welcome. My name's Charity. I'm one of the co-authors of a cookbook called Easy Healthy Tasty, which has been written to help you in the kitchen. Thank you for joining me tonight as I cook our family dinner. Now tonight we're going to be having shepherd's pie, and if you caught our video a couple of weeks ago, you'll already know that shepherd's pie is traditionally made with lamb mince, whereas cottage pie, which is what I made a couple of weeks ago, so you can go and check that out if you haven't seen it already, is made with beef mince. So we're going to get started making some shepherd's pie with a little bit of a twist. I'm just going to turn my stove on here. I've got a heavy pot here, and the benefit of this pot is that I can make the like the meaty part of my shepherd's pie in this pot, and then I can top it with some potato and some cheese and put it in the oven to finish cooking, all with just using the one pot. So I'm just going to put a little drizzle of oil in my pan, because this is a no chop recipe, so we're using our trusty frozen pre-chopped onion. So I'm going to add about 1 cup of pre-chopped onion, which is equal to about 1 onion. So if you don't need a no-chop version and are happy to cut up onion yourself, then just dice up 1 onion. So we're going to give that a moment to start cooking. The reason that we put the onion in straight away before letting the oil heat up is because when we're using frozen onion, it has a tendency to splatter at you if you add it to hot oil. So we always recommend that if you're using frozen onion, that you put it to the pan while the pan is still cold and while the oil is still cold, to minimize the chances of it splattering up and hurting you. So we'll let that do its thing for a moment. All right, this is sizzling. I'm going to add in now 2 teaspoons of minced garlic here. And I'm not bothering to use measuring teaspoons. I'm just using the ones that I'd find in my cutlery drawer. And that's about equal to 2 cloves of garlic. So if you wanted to cut it up yourself, you could. And it would be, you'd want to use 2 cloves of garlic for that. So those onions are softening up nicely, and that garlic is frying off as well. And the next thing I'm going to add is lamb mince. Now I have noticed that depending on where you get it from will depend a bit on the lean to fat ratio, so how healthy the lamb mince that you buy is. This one here is it's a bit fattier than the one that I would normally choose, but I was at this particular supermarket today and that's what they had. But if you are someone who visits a couple of different supermarkets, I would recommend that you have a look and see what you can find. Because when I was at Coles a couple of weeks ago, their lamb mince was the same. They had the same amount of fat in it as the lean beef mince, whereas this one does have a bit more fat in it. So if I had been at Coles today, I would have got the Coles one instead. So I'm going to use my whisk to help me break up this mince. And if you are someone who's quite happy to break up your mince using a spoon, then please do that. It's just that we like to show you easier ways that you might not have thought of before here at Easy Healthy Tasty. So we'll finish breaking this up and browning the mince, and then we'll get on to the next part of our recipe. Okay, so that's starting to be fairly brown. I'm going to leave that there. And the next thing I'm going to do is add 2 heaped dessert spoons of flour to this, so that we get a nice thick sauce, hopefully, later on. So there's one. There's two. And now we're going to stir this through. And you'll see it just absorbed all those juices that were coming out of the mince. Okay, so now we're going to add to this, we're going to add about 500 grams of peas, corn and carrot mix. You can add whatever frozen vegetable mix you like. I just really like the peas, corn and carrot because I know that they're little small chunks that everybody in our family is going to eat. So I'm going to add about half the bag. It's probably about 500 grams there. And this helps to increase the vegetable content of the dish. Helps us get towards those 5 serves of veggies a day. It also means that the 500 grams of mince is going to go a bit further. Okay, so to that we are now going to add, what have we got to add? We've got 1 can of diced tomatoes, for even more veggies, and because it tastes good. Just give that a quick little stir. And we're going to add 500 mils of stock. Now I think these you're supposed to be able to tear. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Maybe. Just. All right. I've got vegetable stock here. You could use chicken stock if you wanted. I don't think beef stock would go all that well, but you could, if that's what you've got available to you, you could always try it. Now don't worry that that's an awful lot of liquid that we've added, because part of making this recipe does involve being a little bit patient, and you're going to reduce that down. So we'll give that a stir. But we're still missing a key part of this recipe, and the bit that takes it from just an everyday shepherd's pie to something that seems a little bit fancy. And that's the addition of mint sauce. Now you can just buy mint sauce from the supermarket, and if you were going to get something like this, then you would add maybe 100 mils, so that would be half this bottle, into the recipe here. But we can make our own, and we can even just make it in the pot while we're going. So I've got some fresh mint from our herb garden out back. If you don't have this, I think you could probably give this a go with like peppermint tea bags even, and you'd still get the minty flavours through. But we're going to use this fresh mint, and of course you could, if you don't have a herb garden, you can buy fresh mint from the supermarket or the greengrocer or something, or ask your neighbours if they've got, if you know they've got a herb patch or something. You can ask them and see if they'll give you some. So we'll pick these leaves off. If I go against the direction of the leaves, they just come off pretty easily. So we're going to tear these up a little bit as we add them to the pot, but we don't have to be particularly worried about how much we rip them up. Just give them a little rip. There's one there that went in whole, but I'm not too fussed about that. Just rip these up as they go in. Give that a little stir. Now the other two main things that we need to add in to give this a mint sauce flavour rather than just a minty flavour, a little bit of sugar and some vinegar. Now I quite like to use red wine vinegar when I'm doing this, but if you don't have that and you don't think you'd ever have any other reason to use red wine vinegar, then please, you could just use white vinegar, or you probably could get away with balsamic vinegar as well, but it would change the flavour a little bit. We need to add about 1/4 of a cup of this. So I will just grab, oh actually sorry, yes, about 1/4 of a cup. That's a 1/3 cup measure. Here's my 1/4 cup measure. So we're going to add about 1/4 of a cup of red wine vinegar. If you're using a different type of vinegar, if you're using balsamic, maybe add a little bit less than 1/4 of a cup. Give it a taste once it's cooked for a little bit, and you can always add a little bit more if you want. But if you are willing to go and buy some red wine vinegar, I would suggest you do that because it tastes so nice in a whole lot of other recipes as well. Give that a little stir. And then we're going to add just a little bit of sugar. So to this whole pot, we're going to add 1 dessert spoon. Better get a clean one because that one's got some flour on it. So I've just got 1 dessert spoon of sugar here for the whole pot. I'll give that a stir. Now, what we've got left to do is wait while this cooks down and then top it with potato and some cheese. But you might notice that I haven't got a pot on the stove. I'm not boiling any potatoes tonight. And that's because after the cottage pie recipe, I had some people ask me if there was, if it would be okay to use maybe Deb potato or something like that. And I have to be honest with you, until today, I'd never made Deb potato, but I made some and it seems like it would work. Okay, so I've had the mixture here reducing down for about half an hour now. I've just turned it off and you can see that there's this lovely thick sauce in it. Now, I will say I decided that I hadn't added enough mint, so I emptied in a peppermint tea bag, and I also added in another tea bag still in the bag. I pulled the tops off though, to get a bit more mint flavour in there. So now we need to make our topping. Actually, we'll just smooth that over first so that it's flat on the top. And we're going to be using Deb potato, like I said before. So I think we're going to need 2 packets of this to cover this well. So all I'm doing really here is following the directions. So it tells me to add the water and then the Deb potato. So I've got 2 packets there, and I need 500 mils of water per packet. So I've boiled this jug, and now I'm going to add 1 litre of water. 1. 2. Now it does say on the directions that if you want to, you can substitute some of the water for hot milk, and if you want to, you can also add some butter or something like that. But I don't think we're going to need to do that today because we're going to sprinkle cheese over the top anyway. So we put one in there and the other one in here. And then I've got myself a fork to use to stir it. It's already thickening up. Now you might be wondering, why would you want to use Deb potato for this charity? Well, I guess it's just an option really, isn't it? If peeling potatoes and boiling them on the stove is not something that you can do or that you want to do, If you couldn't find potatoes, like I couldn't a few weeks ago at the supermarket, then this is an option for you. Or if you just weren't organized enough to remember to buy potatoes, or maybe you just forgot, I do that all the time. If you just forgot, but you had some of this sitting in the cupboard, then you could still make this or a similar kind of recipe. So it's just a convenient option to have. The other good thing about it is that it is smooth. It's a smooth puree food. There's not going to be big chunks and lumps of potato because it's all potato flakes to start with. All right, so we just need to leave this for about 30 seconds, it says on the packet, and then give it another stir. Okay, so it's probably been about 30 seconds now. We'll just give it a quick little stir. If you wanted, I think this is a pretty good consistency. If you wanted it a bit stiffer, then you can always just add a bit less water, or if you want mashed potato that's a bit softer, then add a bit more, really. I'm not going to add any salt to this because there's already salt in the mix, but I will add just a little bit of pepper because I like pepper in my mashed potato, and I haven't added any to the rest of the mixture. So I'll just stir that through quickly. Okay, and now we can get on with topping our shepherd's pie. I'm just going to use the spoon that I used in the mixture. If you really didn't want any of the mixture in the potato, then you could get another spoon if that's important to you, but what's most important to me is as little washing up as possible. So the two packets here makes just over a kilo of mashed potato, and if you watched our shepherd's pie video, you saw that we boiled about a kilo of potatoes, so it's a similar amount of potato, and this should probably end up serving, I don't know, 6 to 8 people. With the dead potato, most of the ingredient in it is potato, but it does contain some preservatives. It does have milk powder and whey powder and salt and some flavorings in there and things like that. And if you take the potato and boil it yourself and mash it yourself, you have complete control over what goes into that mashed potato. Doing my best to cover the whole of the shepherd's pie here. And I've preheated my oven to 180 degrees. I'm using a it's like a grill and fan combination kind of setting on mine. If you've got that, then you could use that. If your oven doesn't have that, then just set it to about 180 degrees. And now I'm going to sprinkle over some cheese. I've got pizza cheese because that's what we had in the fridge, but you could just use whatever cheese you've got. Okay. So I'm going to pop this in the oven now, just until the cheese has melted and gone a nice golden brown, and then it'll be ready to serve. So this is looking ready. All bubbling away. Hot, cheesy, potatoey shepherd's pie goodness. So we're going to serve that up. Let's see how we whoop. Oh, it smells good. So, shepherd's pie, ready to go. Dinner is served. Thanks for joining me. Have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you next time on Easy Healthy Tasty. Bye. Oh, bang. Sorry. Sorry, range hood. That again, if you wanted it the opposite, if you wanted it.
Sorry.
All right.
You're gonna pick up for 30 seconds.
Yeah. Sure.
I was doing my best.
No, I know. It's fine. Oh, it'd be great fun when you do that on the Facebook Live. Yeah.